So I did a video the other day on the original Raspberry Pi, the Raspberry Pi 1B, the 512 model, and had a really interesting comment from Rory. Is it possible to get hold of the original operating system just for the hell of it? Well, turns out it's still available. And it actually feels reasonably snappy. If I flick through the start menus, you can see that it moves around pretty quick. System tools, if I launch Task Manager, and let's see how much resources it's using. CPU usage, memory. If I start up something like Midori, which is the web browser, now I've lowered the resolution on this to 720. I'm going to show what configuration I've done, but I just wanted to show you the OS first of all, because I'm sure some people will just want to remember what it was like. So we've got DuckDuckGo as the search. So let's do a search for hot UK deals and see how quick that comes up. I did try this at 640 by 480, but it was awful. Just everything was way too big. But the web browser is working on 512 meg of RAM, and you can see it's slow when I click on it to load up and everything, especially as this site has got quite a lot of images in it, so it'll be interesting to see how well it handles that. Whilst it's loading up, if I go down to here and internet, you can see Dillo, Midori, private browser Midori, and NetSurf web browser. We've got programming, because obviously it was so much about the GPIO pins when the Pi first came out and all the maker side of it. Now it does so much else as well as all that. So you can see it's still, I don't know if it is still loading up or if it's given up. Oh yeah, it might have given up. Can we go back to Task Manager? And CPU usage is maxed out. Now I haven't got any cooling on this. In my previous Pi 1 video I had the Pi Maroni fan chip. I'm going to put that back on because I'm going to do a bit of overclocking. It's not maxing out on the RAM, but the CPU is. Oh, the page is there, look. So if I click back on the page, I can move around, albeit slowly. You're obviously going to be better off on pages that are, you know, less information on them. I wonder if you can, like in Chrome, you can tell it you only want the mobile browser. Yeah, it's got all the preferences and everything in here. Startup, fonts, behavior, browsing, network. Yeah, I don't know where it is in that. Anyway, I'm going to boot up my Raspberry Pi 400 and show you how to get hold of this and install this if you want to have a go with it, and also just the initial setup and configuring and things like that. So let's close this down. Is it responding? Sometimes it does, sometimes it doesn't. Yeah, it's not doing anything, as you can see. I wonder if I can shut it down with this bit. Yeah, no, it seems to have stopped responding. Oh no, something's happening. Oh yeah, shut down. So, shut down. And let's see how long that takes to... Oh, it looks like it's doing it. So back on my Pi 400, let's just put the SD card in that I want to write Raspbian to. You can see that pops up. So I found this page sort of digging into it. I need an old Raspbian release, and they had a precise release they wanted. I can only find the latest release. Is there a way to get the old release mentioned above? And you can download the historical versions offered by the Foundation here. So thanks to Jacob. So this is the version I've used, 15th of July 2012, Wheezy Raspbian, and it also goes up to 14th of February 2020. Which is probably when Raspbian became Raspberry Pi OS, I would think. So I downloaded that file. That is in my downloads. I also found this older Cnet review from 2012, June 2012, $35 Raspberry Pi. So in fact, before that software release, and if we scroll down, you can see there's various different images in there. Talks about it being 700 megahertz and so on. And one of the interesting things is they talk about the lack of Adobe Flash. Adobe Flash was never on the iPad or the iPhone, and in the end Adobe Flash went away. So yeah, nothing to worry about that it doesn't support Adobe Flash, but at the time it seemed like a really bad thing. I do remember people moaning about Adobe Flash not being supported. So let's go back to the main screen and let's type in Imager and launch that. Choose OS. So I'm going to go for custom. Here's Wheezy that I've downloaded. Choose storage. I've got a 32 gig SD card in there, micro SD card. Hit right and yes. Okay, so that's finished. So what I need to do now is take the SD card out of the Pi 400 and pop it into my SD card adapter. And let's plug in some of these cables, so power, and see what it does for the first time. I can see the lights come on. Gonna need this one, not the fancy screen that we now have on Raspberry Pi OS. None of the auto setup and auto install options as well. Type Start X to launch a graphical session, so it boots to this first time. So various different things in here. So expand root, so this is basically to make all the space available on the SD card, and that's done almost immediately. Overscan we want to disable, which basically gets rid of this black border you can see around the edge. Configure keyboard layout, well I'll leave that. I'm going to stick with the ordinary username as Pi and password as Raspberry. I'm going to change the locale just in case it affects the internet side of it. Just thinking about it. Okay, so I've got to find GB or UK on here. The English GB, I guess it's that one. Hit space. Oh, there's already, look, that one's already selected. Oh, okay, it looks like it's already there anyway. So I guess that makes sense. Generating locales, this might take a while. Okay, so that's all done. Time zone, I guess it comes up as UK anyway. Oh no, it doesn't. So Europe and London. Not going to worry about memory split or being able to SSH into it. Start desktop on boot. So it normally boots it into terminal, so I'm going to get it to start desktop on boot. I'm not going to update. So should we boot straight to desktop? Yes. And let's hit finish and reboot now. Okay, so it has booted straight to desktop. You can see it's running in 1080 now. 1080 is definitely going to be lower performance, but it is the resolution of my monitor. But if I want to change that, I can go down to the start bar, go to accessories and root terminal, and it gives you a warning about having root access. I need to type in sudo nano boot config.txt, and here we have access. And then what I need to do is, so I got rid of these two, which basically defaults to 640 by 480, but 640 by 480 was fast, definitely faster than 720, but wasn't really that usable, and it's also at 4:3 resolution and my monitor is 16:9 widescreen. So let's pick 4 to default to 720. And let's do a bit of overclocking. So I'm going to look up the settings I was using on my other Raspberry Pi 1 video, because I put it in the description. Now I can't find a hash key, so I'm going to have to copy and paste a hash. I just put that in so I know what I've added to the system. And the bit that invalidates your warranty, force turbo equals 1. And then Control X and yes, and enter. And then I want to type in reboot, but before I press enter, I'm going to want to put a Pi Maroni fan shim on, which is in this box somewhere. Here it is. I've got another one here somewhere. No, I don't know where it is, but it's another GPIO pin fan, which probably would also work. So this just sits straight over and it will start up straight. Oh, okay. Don't put it on while you're running the Pi. Oh dear. What happens if I do control or delete? Okay, I've yeah, messed that up. Let's switch that off and on again. I guess it will start with the overclock anyway. Probably should be more careful. Oh dear. Have I wrecked it? Let's leave it off for a little bit more. Take off the Pi Maroni fan shim. I have done that before. Oh dear. I have done that before with the Pi 4 and it was always fine. So let's boot it up without it first of all and see if the video mode is going to work properly. Did I just wreck my Pi? I think I might have. I did. Okay, so I've just booted up with my son's Pi, which I can't remember what it was, but it's one of the older ones and not as old as the Pi 1. And it's come up with this message. So I'm not sure if it's the SD card, although it does say Pi 1, Pi 2, if that is Pi 1, Pi 2. So yeah, maybe let's try another SD card in this one again. I think Pi OS 32-bit is on this one, so let's just shut that off and switch these over. What do we reckon? Is it broken? Certainly could be. Switch on again. See if we get that flickery screen. Not getting the flickery screen. That's hopeful because we've got a cursor going in here. It's not loading up, but the video output is working, which I'm pleased. Oh, it is booting up. I haven't broken my Pi. So this is back on the Pi 1 512. Did I corrupt the SD card by doing that? Okay, no signal's a bit weird, but I'm not overly concerned. Yeah, I don't know what it's doing now. So you can see we've got activity. Oh no, it is starting up. It's taken ages, but I have got a cursor. Nothing to click on. Oh, there was something there then. Oh, there you go. Okay, so I haven't broken my Pi, and this is my Pi 0. This would be, I don't know, some recent version of Bullseye for my Pi 0, but you can see it's working. Oh, that's a relief. So let's shut this down. I'm going to re-flash that original operating system again, and maybe not be quite so aggressive with the overclock. No, let's try the same overclock and see if that was the problem, although it did seem to coincide with the moment I touched the Pimeroni fan shim onto the GPIO pins, which you wouldn't think would be too much of an issue because yeah, it can't touch more than one pin at the same time. So before I do that, I've just disabled all the overclock settings. You can see I've hashed them all out. I'm doing this on my Pi 400. I figured rather than flash the OS, maybe it was the overly aggressive overclock settings. Okay, it was the overclock settings, so you can't overclock as aggressively on the original Raspbian because I managed exactly those settings using RetroPie and Recalbox and also the current version of Raspberry Pi OS 32-bit, so it's all booted up, not a bricked Pi. So I need to change these settings to something which is still overclocked, but maybe some safer settings. So let's have a look. Let's use this browser. And we're going to go to, well, let's just put overclock, because I did that before and I found some more safe settings. I think 900 was all right. So when's this from? 2022? No, I need old. Here we go. So Tom's Hardware comes to the rescue. Pi 4. Okay, so Pi 1 looks like it will go to 1000 with an over voltage of 6. I think 6 is as high as you can push it without needing the forced turbo. So let's move this over a bit. Okay, so arm frequency equals 1000, core frequency equals 450, and over voltage of 6. I'm going to leave the SD RAM and let's reboot that. So Control X, yes, enter, and reboot. Fingers crossed. One thing I've noticed, which my Pi 4 doesn't do, is when it does a reboot, it keeps the display on. On my Pi 4, my screen capture stops capturing because it detects there's no display, but it carries on this. Okay, we have some sort of problem. Look, final write to SD card still running. Yeah, it's definitely not working, so I'm going to shut it down and change it on my iPad. Okay, this is at 900 now. Okay, trying again. I've removed all the overclocks now. Because it was getting an error and I think it was the SD card. So it's booted up, so it really doesn't like overclock, even 900 with an overvoltage of 6, and I'm using an official Raspberry Pi 4 power adapter with a micro USB adapter. It's definitely got enough power, there's no issue there, and I did have loads of things plugged in when I was overclocking, so it looks like the original version of Raspbian really didn't like overclocking. So let's see what we've got. Debian reference, file manager, so let's see what the folders look like, and let's also go for the Debian reference and see what that comes up with. So this is the folders. Yeah, that looks fine. Does it detect my NAS drive? All this long ago, let's just close that. Operation not supported. What? So go and network drives. Raspberry Pi OS is really good at detecting my drive. Yeah, it doesn't seem to be. I don't know what the not supported was, but it doesn't seem to be finding it like it normally does. Pi desktop rubbish, operation not supported. Or is that just because there's nothing in the bin? Is that why it's done that? Let's go back. Yeah, error, operation not supported, because you have nothing in the bin. Preferences, customize look and feel, desktop session. So we do say monitor settings. Unable to get monitor information. Keyboard and mouse settings. Yeah, they come up alright, that's all adjustable. So let's try one of these other NetSurf web browser. I can see my system resources going up a bit higher down the bottom here. Ah, here we go. So search, oh, this has got Google. So let's do BBC and do a search. Click here if you're not redirected within a few seconds. Just thinking about it. Done. Oh, it thinks it's done, does it? Let's click on that again. Ah, there you go. So BBC, and if we were to try BBC Food, let's go full size. This feels like quite a nice lightweight browser. NetSurf, I'm not sure if it's still available. I didn't do it in my browser speed test. Although it's not loading up the BBC Good Food page very quickly. No, I don't know if that's still, it does say loading here. Oh yeah, it is getting there. Again, probably I picked something that's really rich on images and things. So yeah, it's working now. And let's copy that page and let's try this other browser and see if we can get that up and running. So, let's close this down first. Let's not be too ambitious. Let's not multitask with browsers, even though we have 3 on here. So Internet and Dillo. Okay, let's pop it in here. I can't right click. Control V. No, I can't paste. So if we go home, where do I search? Maybe I can put it in there now. So I've typed in google.co.uk. Let's see what happens if I do that. Here we go. Now we're running. That was like lightning. So BBC Food. Let's try that again. Oh, this feels really quick. Is it going to be quick when there's image? Oh, it's not giving me... I can't select that yet. Although I can... That's weird. I can't select that, but I can select recipes. So let's go for recipes. Document is moved. And this is a really basic version of the site. So let's go with sport and see if it finds the sport page. So the reason it's fast is it's ignoring loads of stuff. So it's a really, really basic browser. Just looks like it's text-based. BBC homepage. Okay. So the browser experience, not so great, but again, the maker side was still really good on these Pis, and so in this early version, and terminal seems to work fine. So, of course, you don't need a graphical user interface for terminal, but let's do it while we're in this desktop environment. And sudo apt install neofetch. Okay, let's try updating first. Sudo apt update. Although I don't really want to do this. Command not found. So apt doesn't seem to work on there. So I'm just going to try sudo apt-get install neofetch because I've just been looking in MagPi issue number 2, and that's how they've said to install. Yeah, so that works. So I can't use sudo apt install neofetch, and it's unable to locate the package. So let's try the same but with G-parted, because that's in issue 2 of MagPi magazine. Yeah, it's finding something. Yeah, it's going to work. Oh, I know what to. So because I haven't updated everything, because obviously if I update, then it's going to start to update. Well, I don't know what it's going to update, because obviously there's been loads and loads of changes, and you would really just start off with a newer version. So let's close that down. And Python games, is there something already in here? Look at that, output, leave as it is, auto, force headphones, force HDMI. Oh, here we go, it came with some games already. Snake-like game, let's hit OK, and here we go. So I'm gaming on the original Raspberry Pi, well the second one, this is the 512 model, and I'm using the very first version of Raspbian, and I'm playing Snake. Okay, so I hope all this helps. Thanks very much for watching, please like and subscribe.